Welcome to Witchy Wit episode 113.
Origin stories.
Yay! Join us as we share our individual origin stories as we moved towards witchiness.
And our origin stories of how the podcast was started. And although none of them involve a radioactive spider, I do think they're interesting.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit Podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 113.
Our origin stories.
Our origin stories. Yay! Well, before we talk about our origin stories,
And then close with a poem.
and close with our poem,
But before all that...
before all of that, let's talk about our current story.
Oh, I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. Yeah. So I was talking to my cousin, and as we all know, I'm a woman of, as they used to say in Italy, una certa età, of a certain age.
Ooh.
And I was talking to him yesterday, and I said, yeah, I got to get out there and mow the lawn. And he said, girl, stop being so cheap. Hire somebody and let them do that work for you. And I said, oh, okay, that makes, he said, you're a certain age and blah, blah, blah. And you're complaining about having time to do stuff. And I said, oh, I'll keep that in, I'll take that under advisement. But there's parts of yard work I don't want to have to mow out front because my stuff looks crappy and it's making they're the sweetest neighbors I've ever had. It doesn't really bother them. But the minute I mow mine, he sends his son out to mow his to make sure that there's always just a quarter of an inch shorter than mine. But, so, I know it makes a difference. I don't like having to do it when I have to do it, but I love doing it. I love that firing up the lawnmower and just making those nice, making order out of a great deal of disorder. And trimming and all that kind of stuff. I love repotting plants. All my plants need to be repotted right now. But I love doing it. I just wish I could do it when I want to do it and not when, like the plants are screaming out for just a grain of soil. Please help us, So anyway, but I've been thinking about that. This is something that I don't have to do. I really don't. I mean, there's plenty of people, good yard, anywhere from landscapers, that was said with air quotes, to, yard guys with just their truck and their lawnmower. And so I have all the options, and I still hesitate. I still want to be doing it myself. And I don't know, as I get older, if that is a good use of my time. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to be doing some yard work over this weekend, and I will let you know, but I'm sure I will enjoy it. Yeah, so that's what's going on with me. What about with you?
So I wanted to check back in for everyone I know who's been on the edge of their seats waiting for how did my ceramics class go. But I officially completed my summer semester ceramics class at our
Okay.
At our local university. So the verdict is that I suck at it.
Suck at what? In what way?
So I'm just being silly.
Okay.
I need way more practice. Is what the truth is. It's really hard. I continue to have pieces on the wheel detach and fly off and go across the classroom.
Does it like hit somebody in the eye or
It's
anything?
hit people. Yes. I continue to have my clay whenever I'm working with water splatter all around me. And get on my neighbors and the teacher who's in front of me. I continue to have my pots turn into bracelets because I don't have a uniform wall depth. So they fly off, and then I have a bracelet. And I also made a pot, and then I was trimming the underside, and I trimmed through. So it just is like a very tall, long bracelet now. So.
Give me a moment to swallow. Oh my gosh.
So, here's the thing is like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the process. Now, I do believe if I kept doing it, I could make more progress. And I made a lot of progress. I only, my very first piece that I made exploded in the kiln.
Did it take down some other things in the kiln too?
I hope not, but it probably did. But none of my other pieces exploded in the kiln. So I feel like that's progress. Like, I think it was a great experiment and a great opportunity for me to be bad at something, to be humble, to learn and grow and be challenged. And I think that's, for me, that's what I want life to hold for me, is constantly learning and growing. And in that is being uncomfortable and sometimes being bad, which I very much was bad at pottery. And like even the pieces that I do have, like, it's like thick walls. And it's not supposed to be super thick, but like I can't get it unless it's like, unless it's thick. Yeah, I'm not good enough to make them thinner yet. So yeah. So I did it. I love it. I have pieces. I glazed pieces.
You do.
A week from this weekend, I'll get to go pick them up and have them in my possession. So like, I overall recommend doing something that is bad, that you're bad at, that I'm bad at.
So may I chime in on this?
Yeah.
Because, it's, to me, it sounds like kind of, I mean, it sounds like an adventure. When you have shit where you're like, like throwing crap at people and they really can't say anything. Because it did say, wasn't it intro to...
It was intro, and
exactly.
I'm the only person being introduced.
So here you have the opportunity to be throwing clay at folks. You have the opportunity to have, like, controlled explosions.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds pretty sweet to me. I'd kill for that opportunity.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe I'll take the class next year. And she'll be smart enough to recognize. Well, she probably couldn't fill it with maybe intro, so she let the oldies get in there. But yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah. And I have seen pots. I have seen products. Yes. over the summer. You sent some pictures, and I was able to really enjoy some of the experience vicariously. But thank you for sharing, and thank you for the update. I'm sure everyone was interested in that.
I hope so. It was interesting for me.
I'm just picturing the explosion in the kiln. It's like parts of your thing were embedded in it. They have like a little bit of you.
Probably.
Oh, one can only hope. Maybe she was wise enough to shield your...
So I'm gonna put this one over here.
I love it. Oh, sweet. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Do you think you're going to do this with something else next summer?
I'm really open to it. I'm really open to it. I really enjoyed it, especially elementally. I really enjoyed it. So, so it is the origin of my ceramics journey.
Nice segue
Thank you.
Into
but how about we talk about our witchy origin stories?
Yeah. So I just like to preface this by saying that this was one of the requests of one of our patronistas. We had a patronista meetup. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
And then part of it, we just asked, what kind of directions would you like to see? What kind of things would you like to see for episodes? And someone suggested our origin stories. So this is a response to that.
And I love that because superheroes have origin stories. So
that's right.
I just let's do that.
I know, but we did not get bitten by a
radioactive spider.
Dang it! Yeah. So there's actually two origins that we're going to be talking about, and one is our individual one. But let's start with maybe people have heard this, but we're kind of putting it all together in one episode here. The origins of our podcast.
Yeah.
Would you care to start us off on that?
Yeah. So for me, it started with us traveling to Portland once a month for a year-long priestessing apprenticeship.
Right. And the traveling consisted of, we were basically going there for a weekend, and we would fly into Portland. And then I think we would always generally have different sleeping arrangements. But then we do the Friday night and Saturday and Sunday, and then fly back home.
And obviously I felt connected to you already. I enjoyed your company already. Otherwise, I would not have sought us to go together.
Yeah.
So we were already connected. And that travel time with you, I ended up really enjoying our conversation so much.
Yeah, me too. I learned, I knew something about you, obviously, because we wouldn't have done this together. I guess at this point I'd known you almost 10 years. And, but I learned so much over the course of a year and a half doing this, not structured conversations, but, just having conversations in general on the plane, waiting to take off in the club, in the Union, the United Club, in the club. So my major takeaway was the depth of the conversations and the fact that I got a chance to really relax. And so we could just talk about anything. We didn't have to talk about the next ritual, or we didn't have to have an agenda. And so those far-reaching conversations are the ones that I take away from that.
I think I was really moved by how similar we were in so many ways. And then at the same time, how different we were in so many ways.
Yep.
And it was through unpacking that and getting curious about that I had the idea for the podcast. Because I wanted to explore more of that.
So why a podcast? Because, so I remember this was like in the middle of the summer, maybe, you had called me and asked, would you be interested in doing a podcast? I was like, okay, sure. And, but I guess I'd been listening to podcasts about 3 or 4 years at this point. I'd kind of fallen into it. I've kind of fallen into listening to podcasts through music podcasts where they talk about, various genres or styles. And I think the first time I listened was like an NPR, the one where they talk about the music that they use on their news episodes.
Oh.
And from that, I found all these other ones. And so that's how I fell into it. But I think I was doing research for my film music class. And there was in doing just the search, I found a couple of episodes from various podcasts. One was on sound, just various sounds and music and things like that. And one was called Imaginary Worlds. And so I started listening to those two kind of semi-religiously. Yeah. But those were really the only podcasts I listened to until COVID. And then in COVID, I had a lot of free time. and sometimes I think some of it, COVID evoked a number of different fears, etc. And I just couldn't wrap my head around reading a book at sometimes. So I would listen to podcasts. Anyway, so so it's like, how did we get on here? Because when you asked about podcasts, I had really just started to kind of swim in them and really, really enjoy the whole idea of podcasts. So when you mentioned maybe doing a podcast, it really resonated at that point because this was like about 3 or 4 months into COVID.
Mm-hmm. And I had wanted to ask you for a long time, but I was chicken. Because I thought it was for me, it was a vulnerable ask because I was basically asking you to be in a relationship with me. A different relationship. A different type of, but I think I was aware of that on some level. And I also really admire you in a lot of ways and value your presence in my life. And so that also made it scarier for me because if you were to say no and I took it and I chose to take it personally, then
it might color.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
color the rest of our relationship.
Right. Right. So I was really scared to ask.
Oh, it's like friends, deciding one wanted to maybe date the other friend, but not wanting to change the existing relationship. I get you,
yeah. Because and in some ways, I am upping the ante on it. I'm changing the dynamic.
Yep.
So I sat with it for a really long time until finally I just got really frustrated with myself and pulled over into an HEB parking lot and called you out of nowhere. to ask. Because I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm going to keep putting it off. So I pulled into an HEB parking lot and called you and asked you if you want to do a podcast. And I remember you being like, because it was out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then I remember you asking me, like, do you know how to do a podcast? And I was like, no. I know nothing.
And at that point, I knew nothing either. I mean, I knew that they existed, and I knew I really liked listening to them, but I had no idea how to do a podcast.
And I wasn't scared about any of that process. I was just scared about asking. I was like, we'll figure the rest of it out. Like, do you want to be my friend?
And I said, did I respond right then, or did I say I wanted to?
You said you were were positive about it.
Okay.
But I always appreciate that you don't. One thing I know about you is that a yes is a yes and a no is a no. And that when you give me your answer, it's a thought out answer. So you did not answer it immediately, but you were like, oh, that's really interesting. That would be really fun. I don't know anything about that. We would have to look into that. Let me think that over. But it was like positive.
Gotcha.
And you wanted to, so I actually felt great whenever I talked with you.
Okay. Good. So how long had you been thinking about it though?
Months.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I don't think I ever knew that.
No, I didn't tell you.
Well, I mean, I didn't. Even after we started, I mean, we've only been doing the podcast 5 years. But yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea. Okay.
And then I do want to share that when we got started, it was during COVID, at the beginning of COVID, when I think things were really scary.
Oh, very scary.
So I would come over to your house, and you would have 2 lawn chairs.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
6 feet apart in your yard.
We sat outside.
Facing the same direction. So, like, they were both facing the road. And
because I have to say this.
Okay.
You know, long before anyone, like any of the medical professionals actually posted any of this information, I was leery about some of their recommendations. Because I know when I see, like, I remember walking on a hiking trail in the mist and someone in front of me coughed. And you could just see, like, the stuff spewing forth from their mouths. And when I got closer, I realized it was still there. And so my dog and I walked around and walked off the path because I knew about those aerosols long before they were telling us. So that idea of, 6 feet apart and you facing each other. No, because those things really spew forth. So anyway, that's a little bit of medical information. Sorry. So anyway, you were saying.
And then you would have a drink for me. And then we would sit and brainstorm. And I remember, like, listening to the music.
Oh, yes. I remember when we found that.
Yeah. And then
which we're still using, by the way.
Yes. Good investment. And then us thinking about our name and us thinking about what we want the episodes to be like. And it was definitely, for me, it was a learning curve. But it was delightful to go through it with you and to be like, well, I don't know. And we would divide up the tasks, and be like, well, I don't know anything about this, but I guess I'll go figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, I just remember being so that was the fun part, was sitting with you and talking about this. The intimidating part was looking at the technology and some of it seemed super, super simple. And I said, okay, I can handle this. It was like editing it is like editing anything. Once you figure out the program, the editing is, it might take time, but it's not that difficult unless the thing crashes when you're right before you save it. But that's neither here nor there. But just, I was trying to find, like, what's the best down and dirty setup that we could do in, without, like, spending thousands upon thousands of dollars of equipment. And lots of recommendations, lots of good recommendations. And we could always, if you're interested in making a donation, we could always use more money and upgrade the stuff. But I mean, I think we've settled on a pretty good, format, obviously, but then just in terms of getting it from our mouths out to our listeners, all 12 of them, our listeners' ears, we figured it out.
And we joke about there being 12 listeners. And it's really exciting. We normally talk about this on our anniversary episode, but seeing that it reaches people in other countries, all over the United States, and then all over the world is like...
It's super amazing.
It's so humbling and bananas to me.
It really is. That someone cares about what we talk about. Very much.
So would you be interested in sharing your personal origin story?
Sure. So this is my personal origin story as a witch. Okay? And these are all of the permutations. So I'm gonna start way back when I was just a child in the Black Baptist Church. Okay, which I always feel the need to say is nothing like what you see in the Blues Brothers. People are not somersaulting in the aisles, though people are sometimes dancing in a modified way. And I just remember, people when they'd go into this ecstatic space, usually because of the preaching. Because let me tell you something, I maybe only agree with 30% of what those preachers are saying, but they get me going too. I mean, it's just their command of rhetoric and their command of like understanding oratory and how to get your audience behind you. In many cases, is instinctive, because I don't think you can learn some of the rules, but you can't do it really well. They were amazing. Anyway, but either because of the music or the preaching, people they call it getting happy or being filled with the Spirit, which I think I might have talked about in another episode, is kind of tied into the Black experience, because in Africa, a part of the rituals would be to have people in the center of the circle go into trance states to be ridden by the Orisha, and then have the gods speak to them. So they basically be aspecting. So this is kind of an aspecting type of or trance experience. And I just remember as a child being in awe of this happening, but also really scared, because it seems like they're being possessed. I mean, they're taking out of their normal stuff. They're losing control of themselves as they normally exist, and they're moving to something else. So that I think the most besides the music, is one of the most powerful memories I had of like this spiritual experience. And I mention this now because we're going to come back to it, I hope. And so that was my growing up. I grew up in the Black Missionary Baptist Church, and so that was that experience. And then, but I've always loved the music of the church, and in the Black Baptist Church, and then later when I was in high school and college, I learned about like the ancient church, the Roman Catholic Church, and then how the Episcopal Church came out of that, but maintained a lot of the traditions of that. And so I actually became an Episcopalian because I loved the ritual, the smells and bells. Oh my gosh, the incense and the bells telling you at what part you're at the thing, and people kneeling and standing in tandem, and so it was there was an active part of it. I don't want to say performative, because that has like a slightly negative connotation, but where to be a part of this experience, you would stand together, you would sit together, etc., etc. So I loved that part of it, and I loved the music of the Episcopal Church. I was an organist, they call it organist choir director, for decades, and really, really loved going through the church year, because as we know from the wheel of the year, the church year, there's Advent, then there's Christmas, then there's Epiphany, so there's this kind of wheel of the church year that I just loved, and I loved all of the traditions that went with each one. So what I tried so hard to do was to get that affective experience that I got in the Black church in the Episcopal Church, and I couldn't. And I actually created morning practices with the canticles, and so I would go through those steps, but I couldn't capture that experience. And it could have been because I was doing it as a solitary, because they didn't have this in the Episcopal Church. They weren't interested in that experiential, I don't want to say experience, because the whole thing is an experience, but they weren't interested in that personal emotional connection as much as the Black Baptist Church. They purported to, and I'm sure in various ways they hoped that what they did would contribute to that, but that wasn't the focus. But that timelessness, I think, of the Episcopal Church was the part that really got to me. And so I think in retrospect, I'm kind of responding to, particularly with the Episcopal Church, I was responding to kind of this African ancient Africa, kind of going back to my roots, in as much as in many of the African spiritual traditions, there would be like a god, like in the Christian church, and then, but they would also have Orisha, which are the lesser gods, and those are the ones that the humans more interacted with, and the ancestors, which in the Episcopal or Roman Catholic Church is acquainted to the angels, archangels, and the saints and all that. So that part, I think the part that caught me with that are actually harkened back to this collective unconscious as a Black person. Well, okay, so that's so that takes us up to the 80s and the 90s. And one of the things that I did come across was the speaker Marianne Williamson. A lot of people know her name now because I think she ran for president about a while ago. But I knew her back in the 90s because she was a kind of a disseminator of the wisdom of the Course in Miracles, and I loved her. I would go. You could go see her in Town Hall in New York City, like once a month or once every couple of months, and she had cassettes.
Whoa!
I know, swinging it back, old school. And I would get her cassettes, but what she preached, quote unquote, what she talked about was how we have this human experience, but it's just a small part of who we are as souls. And so she was one of the first by listening to her, I began to really explore some of the things that I kind of allude to in terms of dimensions and the soul and the timelessness of the soul and reincarnation and things like that. And so, I just remember I did the course. I never went past, I think, lesson 80. It's supposed to be 365. I don't think I've ever gotten past 80. Maybe I've gotten to 100. I've done it a couple of times. But the most successful I was able to do it was in Rome because I was outside of my normal habits and demands, obligations. All I was doing in Rome, that I was working on my research for my dissertation, all I had to do was be in the archives for 7 or 8 hours, and the rest of the time I could make to be my own. So I just remember doing the meditation, like, that is not a chair, that is not a thing, that is not, and just going through that every day and just finding a moment of peace and a moment for myself. So now we're in the late 90s. and then I've told this story a couple of times, so I'll just briefly touch on it. How the swing towards paganism and witchiness that's always been there. So what I was hoping to get across with all of this was that I had this desire for ecstasy. I had this need for ritual. I had this sense of myself as being a part of the world around me, a part of nature, an integral part of nature, and that just as I was a part, everything else had just its own importance. Like a rock had as much density as I had, if not, well, probably a little bit more. But anyway, so I had a sense of all of this. I was just looking at it in different ways through the only lenses that were available to me at the time. Until I was sitting in Barnes and Noble, which is like Amazon.
But in person.
Yeah. And you can actually hold the books in your hand before you buy them. And seeing, there was a magazine rack, and looking at Sage, I didn't know it at the time, but there was a magazine that called me because it showed a sketch of a woman walking through the woods or something. And I thought, oh, great picture. Picked it up, didn't really look at it, just started leafing through it and seeing all these articles on herbs and crystals and, walking out in the woods and, taking sacred baths. And I was like, oh my gosh, this magazine is me. This magazine's me. And then opening it up to the second page where they talk about Sage Woman, the woman of, for witches or whatever, and me slamming it shut and putting it back on the rack. And I did that for a couple of years until the early 2000s when I decided to stop resisting. And at the time I wasn't quite sure what I was, but I went to Z Budapest's Goddess Festival. And they called themselves goddess women and stuff. So I said, okay, I can kind of go with that. I'm a goddess woman or whatever. or they called themselves herb women or something like that. So I wasn't using the word witchy yet. But I went there, and that's when, basically all of the veils that I had covered myself with were stripped away. And I saw, first of all, this huge company of women, all coming from different traditions, but contributing to building this energy with these rituals every night and these various courses during the day. And it was amazing. I just felt as if this whole new world had opened up to me that I didn't even know existed. It wasn't that I wasn't looking at it. I had no idea that was there. And so that was super, super amazing. And then at the same time, I was kind of lurking on a couple of list serves. I know no one knows what that is. Man. So it's like social media, but it came to your inbox.
Yeah, like 8-bit social media. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but so I belonged to a couple of listservs that I only lurked on because they kept, I'd read a couple of messages until someone said the word witch, and then I'd kind of go away for a bit and then come back in, and so I dipped. I don't think I ever posted, but I kind of lurked. But after going to Z Budapest thing, I began to say, okay, I'm a pagan. Up until then I was like a Christian with a lot of herby, herbs and crystal tendencies, but I said
crystal tendencies.
But I finally said, you know what? No, I'm not Christian. I don't agree with most of the stuff there. Like even when, they talk about Jesus, I felt like Jesus was a mentor and a guide and had a great deal of wisdom that then got chewed up and totally fucked up by the church, right? Totally, in my opinion, misinterpreted. So that's when I expressed my goddess, my paganness. And then I would say, after I became a part of our circle, I was still dipping. And then I finally decided, if you're going to do this, you have to make it a priority. And the way I made it a priority was by penciling in my calendar for the rest of the year. Because what would happen is we would meet on third Thursdays. And like the Wednesday before, someone would post, okay, see you on Thursdays. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got that. And it wasn't a priority. And then when I made it a priority, that's when I began to say, okay, I'm part of this circle of women who worship goddesses, etc. So what does that make me? Okay, I'm a goddess woman. And in conversations, more and more people talked about the idea of the witch. And first of all, the fact that it can mean many different things to a number of different people. And so it was very soon after that I embraced the term witch. Yay! So that's my story.
Yay!
That's my story.
I love it.
Yeah. Would you care to share yours?
I would.
Okay.
So I believe that on some level I've always known, but something I heard you say is that you didn't even know it was like a thing that existed, right? Like I didn't know it was a thing, but I knew that it was a part of something was a part of me, and I just couldn't name it. So in hindsight, in my family, there's a story of me running naked down a church aisle when I was very little. And then I turned around and looked at my family and went, So I think that in some way, I still have that energy today. So,
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How old were you?
Very little.
Like a baby? A toddler?
Probably like toddler.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm just thinking you're doing this at the age of 8 or something.
Like 14.
Thank you. I had the proper image in my head.
And then I know like I would always take my shoes off when I would walk home from school, and I would want to walk in the grass. And I remember thinking like, what is the point of a sidewalk anyways? And like walking on, I'm walking on like people's grass as I went home. And I know I always had an attraction to the ecstatic. I have a memory of being very young, early elementary school, and I was in a Chuck E. Cheese, and they had the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics going, and I just remember absolutely losing my shit to like dancing to them. I think I was standing on a chair doing the mashed potato. Like I was like in it. And I remember losing myself in it and then coming out of it after the song was over, and we were eating pizza and just being like, what was that? That was so cool. But, I was a little kid. I didn't know what was going on. And then And then in high school, I knew that I was looking for something. Spirituality has always been important to me. It was like going to a refrigerator and opening up and it was empty, you know, and I knew that I was trying to find this outlet for my spirituality. And my mom would take me to the Methodist church with her, and I would go to a Methodist summer camp. And I remember loving the Methodist summer camp. But what I really loved about it was we would have church on like a cliffside that overlooked a valley with trees and as the sun set. And so I'm just like losing my mind sitting on these like wooden planks looking at the sunset and these trees. And then one time this guy was giving a sermon or something, and he was talking about, it was a metaphor, cutting down the trees to see the sun. And his metaphor was like cutting down like the trees of sin in your soul to see the sun, the S-O-N, you know, like Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I remember listening to him and being like, that's fucked up. You shouldn't cut down any. Do you see how magic, like these are magical trees. Like you can see the sun, the S, you know, S-U-N. I'm like, this is great. Like, and I remember sitting there and just like, and that was a moment for me of when I realized like, oh, everyone around me is not having the same experience that I am, even though we're both in awe, like the original meaning of awe, you know, like we're both in awe, but I'm in awe of the trees and the sun, and they're in awe of the sun, of God or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, and then I was confirmed. It was something that my mom wanted. And I did tell her that I felt like it was disrespectful to her church and her God. And she still wanted me to do it. So I did it. Because I don't care. Because I lived in her, basically, because I lived in her house. Mm-hmm. And then whenever I moved to college, I was in the Ozarks and I joined a coven. And we were all like baby witches. Yeah.
May I ask you a question? Yeah. So how did you know that you needed or wanted a coven? Like when did that flip from I'm being confirmed in the Methodist church? Can you step us through from whenever that was, like when you're 14 or something like that?
Yeah.
To college? If you know.
I don't know. Okay. All I know is that when I went to college, there was a table for an alternative religions club. And so I was like, that sounds like what I need. And so I went there, and then the people in that club were witches. And they were like, you can come do ritual with us. And I was like, I guess that's good because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I literally stumbled into it. And it was a very lucky stumbling. So
it was meant to, yeah.
I'd like to think on some intuitive level, because to me, it on the outside, I just was like stumbling. But it was very well-timed stumbling. So I really feel like it was divinely guided. Because the chances of that happening, especially in rural Missouri and like the Ozarks, is like there's so many Christian colleges there. And then on our alternative religion club, like Catholics would show up because in that part of the world,
Catholics are alternative.
Yes, like the view was like Catholics were alternative, and we're like not that alternative. Like we mean other things, and they would be really confused. So.
Poor thing.
So then it's a bunch of us baby witches, and none of us, I don't believe any of us had any idea what we were doing. And we're printing off these like rituals off of the internet. And you know how they have like all those little hole punches along the sides so that it could like print out. So like we're printing like rituals out and standing outside in this one woman's backyard, like reading paper, like in the moonlight, trying to do rituals. And like I didn't know what I was doing. None of us knew what we were doing, but it was important to me. And I lived 3 hours away. My parents lived 3 hours away. And I remember going home for Christmas break, but I drove 3 hours back because I wanted to do winter solstice ritual because that's how important it was for me. Mm-hmm. So,
even though you're standing outside under the moon with your paper, do you remember any of the experience?
I remember feeling like I was on the right track, but it was very much like Bambi legs.
Well, and we could also point our listeners to a previous episode where there is another woman who was kind of working her way through witchiness, and our review of the book, The Witching Year.
Yeah, yeah. It felt like I was on the right track. It did not feel like I was there. but I did feel like I was on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember hearing the Charge of the Dark Goddess for the first time and weeping. And like that to me tells me that I was on the right track. Our rituals, I do not think were very powerful, but they're not going to be when you're reading off a piece of printer paper, you know? But it was important to me, and I knew I was on the right track. At the same time, I also developed like I developed a spiritual practice. I didn't know it at the time, but it was at like dance clubs and raves. So, and then there was some ritualistic stuff at summer camp that I like really like sunk my teeth into. Looking all back on that is it's an ecstatic practice. And that's what I was attracted to. I also bought my parents a book called When Someone You Love Is Wiccan, A Guide to Witchcraft and Paganism for Concerned Friends, Nervous Parents, and Curious Coworkers by Carl McColman. And I checked, it's still on Amazon to this day.
Oh my gosh. What are the numbers? Do you remember if it's still being bought and sold a lot now?
I know that it was still for sale. I did not look at how many people buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it was a great book. Mm-hmm. And also I'm not Wiccan, but it was like the closest that I could get. So, and here's like a snippet from the one of the pages inside. It said, "Witches don't eat babies or children. They aren't necessarily old, ugly hags or sexy young women. Wiccans include both women and men, young and old, rich and poor, PhDs and high school dropouts. Most hold down respectable jobs and live in nice homes with their families. Witches, Wiccans, and pagans don't believe in, let alone worship Satan or any other devil." So it's just, I got it from my parents. I don't think they ever read it.
Did they display it on their bookshelf or
no.
did they hide?
No. So then I moved to Texas, and again, with the stumbling, I stumbled into the circle, and I remember looking for a circle, and I was really amped about this circle because the website was purple. Not like black and red. I was like really wary. I had a really negative experience with like some pretty like unhealthy practices within a circle, and so I was really looking for a circle that prized accountability and growth. And when I stumbled onto the webpage for this circle and the agreements, I was like, this looks good. I don't believe it though. So
you had healthy boundaries around your joining our group.
I really like very thick boundaries. And so I emailed the email on the website, and I was interviewed at a mall food court to make sure that I wasn't bananas. And then I started attending, and I was skeptical, and I went and I danced in the corner, and then I would leave.
I remember.
And what I didn't realize was that I was ecstatic, and this circle was ecstatic. And what I didn't realize is that I'm a priestess, and this circle, through our commitment to each person having an individual experience, it's not theatrical where someone stands and does everything and then we watch. We're all participating. Through that, I was able to access the part of me that is priestessing. And I don't believe I was lucky. I believe it was divine. I was divinely guided, because this is just too important that I could have missed out on it. So when I earned my master's degree in 2013, I had asked to go through the priestessing apprenticeship program in our circle. And I was originally told no.
Well, okay, before you continue, would you say a little bit about what was in your application letter?
Well, I was getting my master's degree and working full time as a teacher. So I get it. But I wanted it.
Yeah.
And so then as soon as I got my master's, then I was welcomed into the program. And I do want to say that I still find deep spiritual meaning in other ecstatic avenues like raves, dance clubs. I'm a competitive West Coast swing dancer. I feel it there. I still feel, I just got back from a week at camp. I still feel it at camp. I'm just really lucky to have this space that helps me understand what it is that I'm accessing in those places.
I'm wondering if you could say something to your baby witch self your baby Wiccan self? Was that group Wiccan or not?
I don't think that group was Wiccan.
Okay, so to your baby witch self, what would you tell her? As she's printing off this stuff, getting ready to go to her first ritual, or during her first ritual, or after her first ritual. Mm-hmm.
I would say find mentors, because the books aren't helpful. And I do want to say, my freshman year of college, I found a mentor. He was the custodian.
Oh, I remember you telling me this. Yes.
So
yes,
I would go out to coffee with the custodian, and he would give me books, and he gave me my first deck of tarot cards, and he would walk me through things. And I have found that I learn so much better from people who are more experienced than me, like 300% than reading a book.
Oh, well, and may I add, to people who see you?
Yes, yes,
because that makes the difference, I would imagine. Yeah.
Do you have an answer to that question for yourself?
Yeah, I'd probably say, you're a witch, damn it, or should get off the pot. It's like, come on, stop. Here's the thing: is everything I went through got me to where I am today. So I hesitate, but I would probably maybe cut off about 4 or 5 years of denial, and just saying, embrace it, relax. You don't have to say anything. You could just read this, do the stuff, and fall into it. If I could save myself a little resisting, I'd probably do something along those lines.
I just feel so lucky to have walked into this circle and to have met you.
Me too. Yay!
Like, who would have known?
Okay, can I tell you, the first time I really, really, really noticed you?
Okay.
So I'm sitting there and I'm drumming and I think we're singing and you're off in the corner and you're dancing and I don't think we had eye contact, but you were really grooving to it, and I went to a different song and you grooved to that song, and I was like, oh wow, this person is really getting into this. And then so I think that might have been the preliminary thing. And then when it was time for doing the actual ritual, like, where'd she go?
Bye.
You were like there for the preliminary. It's like, nah, I don't want to stay for the rest of it. But that's the first impression that I remember. There's probably others, but that's the first impression. And I think I don't think you did that necessarily consistently. You might have just had other things, but I do remember you getting so into the first part, that the kind of preliminary the pre stuff, that I thought you'd be there for the ritual, and you're like, nah, nope. Out of here, taking, I'm extending my boundaries.
Yep.
And going home.
I have trust issues. I am scared of intimacy. Bye.
But you were in it to win it for the dancing. Yeah. So.
Oh man.
Those were the days.
Those were days. And to think that Leilani of the early 2000s, to know that we would walk the Camino, that we would do a priestessing apprenticeship, yes. That we would have a witchy podcast together.
Yeah. I know the trajectory, looking back on the steps of your life is just kind of amazing to see where you were and to where you are. So thank you so much to our patronista who asked us to kind of go through this. So our poem today is one that you found on social media, and the author's name is Javeria Baloch.
So I found this on social media. I follow a lot of poetry pages and on Instagram, and so her work comes across my feed a lot of times, and I just enjoy it for its brevity, but it's how it seems really emotionally connected. And it seems, from what I can see on her social media, is that she's an author and a poet, and she's published some books of poetry. Slowly embracing the process of becoming kind, becoming forgiving, becoming who I was meant to be. A beautiful human being. Thank you for joining us as we talked about our witchy origin stories in our circle and the podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!